Hey guys, Cam here from TodaysiPhone.com, and it's Monday, and even though the sun is shining outside and it's all cheerful and bright and there's no clouds, which is a pretty big change for where I live. And this week, the entire video is dedicated to everybody who mentions the words or something similar to the effect of, if Steve Jobs were around, this would never happen. Now, I've seen this a few times over the last couple of years, and in fact, almost as soon as the news of Steve Jobs' sad passing away from his long battle with illness, we saw all this kind of stuff. Every time Apple did something and it didn't turn out to be absolutely perfect, the commenters were, this would never happen if Steve Jobs was still in charge. This would never happen. And the truth is that it probably would. The reason for that is Steve Jobs was never a one-man show. Obviously, sometimes he liked to take credit for a lot of the things that he did, and there is absolutely no denying that he was a very important person to Apple. If he had never come back at the end of the 20th century towards the start of the new one, Apple would never have released the original iMac, the colourful plastic box with the bits inside, and they would never have done iTunes, and there's a lot of stuff they could never have done. And it's true, he had a massive impact. He founded the company way back in the 70s, and so clearly he was a very important person to Apple, and I do not want to downplay that for one moment, because that's not what this video is about. Apple would not be here without Steve Jobs, but that doesn't mean that everything that Apple did under Steve Jobs was perfect, because it wasn't. Now, let's go back a few years to when Apple started to try and do their own cloud thing. Now, they had a sort of issue, because when they launched Mobile Me, this is before iCloud existed, there was a Mobile Me service, and it essentially let you sync your Apple computer with your iPhone, your Windows PC even. And it would sync things like your contacts, your calendars, your email, and even some of your bookmarks in Safari. But when they had this major launch event, the day it launched, it failed. It was terrible. It did not work. And there's a famous story about him getting everybody involved into Cupertino in the town hall, where they have a lot of their meetings in the Apple headquarters, and he just laid into them because it was a huge mistake. Next big mistake I wanted to talk about again was the iPhone 4. If you remember, there was a massive issue with the antenna on the iPhone 4, as if you held it in the wrong way, your signal would just drop from like 5 bars to 0 in the space of about 10 seconds. Maybe less, maybe more, but there was an issue there. I guess the issue wasn't actually the biggest problem out of the whole thing that they called AntennaGate. The big issue was the way that Apple responded to this under Steve Jobs. What happened was, we started complaining, we saw issues, there was death grip videos all over the place showing the signal dropping, and you could see it, it was happening. And Steve Jobs' response was something to the effect of, you're holding it wrong. So that wasn't great, that's not the point. When Maps was released and people had an issue with it, what happened? Tim Cook publicly apologised, and that's the massive difference between Apple now and Apple then. But Apple makes mistakes now, and Apple made mistakes then, and Apple will always make mistakes because no company is perfect regardless of its reputation. Now, there are a few things that maybe I don't agree with that Apple does, but there was always a few things I don't agree with that Apple does. And actually, after Steve Jobs, Tim Cook took charge, there are a few things that Apple are doing that would never have happened under Steve Jobs that are actually good things that are happening that would maybe never have happened under Steve Jobs. For instance, when Tim Cook took over, he started doing this whole charity thing where if people gave away money to specific charities, Apple would match their donations. That wouldn't have happened under Steve Jobs. And also Apple started opening up about their trade and the way they were partnering with their partners in China, making sure that labour was fair, trying to make sure that people's working conditions were good, and actually working with the Fair Labour Association to make sure that conditions were good. And it's the first big company of any kind to announce a partnership with the Fair Labour Association. This was, I think it's about 2 years since this happened now, and it's still going. And they're still trying to improve working conditions for people that were, by all accounts, really miserable in their jobs. Some of them were committing suicide. It was terrible. And they installed nets at Foxconn factories, and they've started to make their staff sign, agreement saying they wouldn't try to commit suicide. It was just awful. But Apple came in, they're trying to change everything, and it's not perfect still, but at least they're being open and honest. And that's probably another thing that would not have happened under Steve Jobs. Those changes that I like, and those things maybe wouldn't have happened, maybe they would. We can't say. It's all hypothetical. And I guess that's my final point. No one of any background or influence, unless they know without a doubt what each of the CEOs was absolutely like to perfection and knows how they respond to absolutely every situation, no one can say if Steve Jobs was around, this would never have happened, because we don't know. And that is the fact of the matter. So can we agree that we are not going to say it anymore? Apart from when I make videos like this where I complain about people who say it. What do you think are some of the things Apple has done in the last couple of years that maybe Steve Jobs would never have allowed? What do you think are the good things? Let me know, use the comments below, and let's get a discussion going. I'm at TIP_Cam on Twitter, and I will see you again soon. And this week, the Monday Moan is being dedicated to the people that always say, if Steve Jobs were around, this would never happen. Check out my new artwork. I got Star Wars. If any of you guessed Star Wars last week, then you did well. You win a prize or something. I don't know what it is.